Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by Boston Hemp Inc. Wednesday, February 14th. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, feeling better, back in the co-pilot's chair, if you will, for this Wednesday edition of the show. 3 games on tap tonight in the NHL. But Alex, welcome back. Feeling better, it looks like.
Yeah, finally doing good. And like I said, thanks to everybody for all the well wishes and stuff. And this time of year, you get the flu, it can hit you down a little bit. But feeling good and ready to go. And we've got a wonderful next few days ahead of us. So looking forward to it. Starting with a short slate tonight.
Yeah, 3 games tonight in NHL action. Looking forward to breaking those down for sure. Let's get into last night, though. It was a busy Tuesday night, and it was a roller coaster ride of a Tuesday night as far as a lot of the games and the way they transpired, and a lot of the betting results as well. I mean, last night was a little bit of everything. The good bets, the bad bets, the ugly bets. There was a little bit of everything last night, especially for yours truly. But we'll begin at 7 p.m. Eastern with the let's talk first Toronto Maple Leafs and what they were able to accomplish last night. Classic National Hockey League fuckery spot, if there ever was one, where you've got this down-and-out Toronto team. No Morgan Rielly, who got a 5-game suspension. We'll talk about that in a moment. No John Tavares or Mitch Marner at the last minute due to a mononucleosis bout and an illness going on through that. So all of a sudden, you're talking about 2 of your core 4 gone, your best defenseman gone, and all you do is beat a Blues team 4-1 that was 7-1 in their last 8 games going into last night. Classic shit right there. Obviously, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, this is where if you're a Leaf fan, you're fucking livid and frustrated and you're just ripping your hair out with this team. Why does it take this situation last night? No Tavares, no Marner, no Morgan Rielly, your best defenseman. Why does it take a situation like that for the entire team, forward 1 through 12, defenseman 1 through 6, to dig in defensively, hound the puck carrier all over the ice, be structured, be tight, airtight in your defensive coverages? Why does it take this situation to bring that out of the Leafs? Why? That is the thing. Why can't we see this more often? Why can't we see this shit with Morgan Rielly in the lineup? Why can't we see that kind of a structured, tight, strong defensive effort? They gave up fewer than 20 shots last night. I mean, it was an absolute blanket that this team put over the St. Louis Blues last night. And yet it took Morgan Rielly being out and obviously 2 of their top 4 forwards being out for it to happen. That being said, credit to them. Bobby McMahon, a hat trick, guy that wasn't even going to play last night before the late absences. He gets a hat trick for Toronto and a 4-1 win over the red-hot St. Louis Blues, of course, who have a lot on the line right now, trying to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. Crazy stuff. As far as the Rielly suspension is concerned, I thought it was 2 games higher than I would have had it. I would have had it 3 games. This guy's never done anything out of line in the past. He's been loyal. He's been a good foot soldier. He's been a good player as far as avoiding controversy and, incidents in the past. He also was nominated for the Lady Byng Trophy just a few years ago as well. Morgan, I thought 5 was a little rough to give him that much. I would have given him 3, quite honestly. That's the number I had in mind, but it is what it is. 5-game suspension. They're appealing it, by the way, which is absolutely absurd because none of these appeals ever win. Never. It's going to be upheld, so it's just a total waste of time if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. But 5 games for Morgan Rielly. But last night, and look, Alan Trimble, who we had some fun with him in the chat yesterday, had the Dick Hog parlay recommendation, which just barely fell short yesterday. Hoglander and Dickinson in that Hawks-Canucks game. But he also pointed out the record of the Leafs without Morgan Rielly last year was 12-4-1, 12-4-1, 13-4-1 now without Morgan Rielly. It makes no sense. He's a great defense, the best defenseman, and yet somehow this team's like now 13-4-1 without him in the lineup, and another win without him last night. Insane. That's why maybe tread lightly, tread carefully at least, fading the Leafs here without Morgan Rielly right now, especially if they're going to play D like last night. Like I thought I was watching the 90s Devils. They were all over the ice, hounding the puck carrier, forwards back checking, Forwards helping out the D every single shift. Unbelievable. But Alex, crazy stuff. And that's the NHL sometimes. Seems like a layup. Blues red hot. Leafs got all these injuries and illnesses and suspension to Riley. And here we go, Toronto 4-1.
Yeah, and it's funny because if we see this in football, we see this in basketball with this kind of a line, the team that we liked in the spot being St. Louis as an underdog, we think, well, something's fishy here. But in the NHL, and certainly in the NHL in the days after the end of football season, you can kind of say, oh, well, maybe this is one where the books weren't paying attention and they end up getting it absolutely right. But they shouldn't have. Like you said, if you're missing your top defenseman and two of your top three forwards, that team's supposed to lose, favorite or underdog, regardless. And if you got a hot dog coming in town like St. Louis, I felt comfortable enough to grab 180 with that. That was one of my stronger plays yesterday. And Bobby McMahon arrived and they get the hat trick. And things like that happen too. We always talk about next man up mentality. We just didn't expect necessarily that would come from a team that, if they have everybody healthy on a Tuesday night laying $1.90 or 200, they're usually losing games 3-2, 4-2. So the fact that those guys are missing, we were kind of thinking, okay, well, yeah, where's next man up mentality? Even if it's a full house, they may not show up. So kudos to them for getting the win. That's a big 2 points. And we talk about how some of these wins and losses stick out more than others when we look down the road, we get close to the playoff time. This is 2 points that will definitely ring out if they end up getting home ice or somehow winning the division by that margin. You can look at a game like this and say, well, this is where they stepped up and delivered in a big spot.
Yeah, no question. So credit to the Leafs for that. Credit to the Colorado Avalanche finally getting a win on this road trip. And I figured, you know what? I thought I was going to stay away from Colorado the rest of the road trip after seeing them get blanked against Florida. But then when I saw, Washington's that next opponent, if they were ever going to get right and get back on track, it was Washington last night, and they did. They jumped on the Capitals early. Now, Washington did answer back, credit to them in the first. But after that, Colorado, again, takes control. And like I say, an explosion for them offensively. That game was pretty good to me overall, and the team total, especially for the Colorado Avalanche, over 3.5 cashes. That was my strongest play in that game. So it was good to see that cash. Much needed win. You need to be able to win on the road. As we always say, when you play in the playoffs, best of 7 series come April, you're going to have to play at least 3 games on the road. So you've got to be able to win road games. And teams like Tampa Bay, teams like Colorado, who have struggled on the road, were both able to win. And the other one was Tampa Bay with a shootout victory last night over the Boston Bruins, 3-2. They were better last night. Hell, how the fuck could they not be better after the way they played against Washington? Just a complete and utter no-show by the Bruins on Saturday afternoon. But something's still not right there. I thought they were better, but they weren't great. You know what I mean? They weren't great last night, Boston. They're still a little out of sync offensively, missing the net quite a bit with a lot of their chances. Still a couple of plays defensively where there were some breakdowns for Boston. Just they didn't look great. They were obviously a whole lot better effort-wise, intensity-wise than the Washington game because they gave you nothing. They gave you 0 performance, 0 effort, 0 intensity, 0 give a damn against the Capitals in that loss on Saturday. There was give a damn, there was effort, there was compete last night, but there just wasn't a fluid performance from Boston. And I think Tampa Bay played well enough to win, and that's exactly what happened. A 3-2 shootout victory there for the Lightning over the Boston Bruins. This is starting to look, Alex, like a little bit like the dog days here for Boston a little bit. This is now 2 really bad games they've played, Calgary and Washington. Vancouver game that they won, on paper, it looks good because they shut out a great Canucks team. Jim Montgomery after that game was saying, I still don't think we played all that great. Right. We just capitalized on a ridiculously high amount of blunders by the Canucks, especially shorthanded, when they gave up multiple shorthanded goals in this game. And sure enough, last night, the effort was there, unlike the Washington game where nothing was there, but it still wasn't a great fluid performance. And just going through a little bit of a, you got to grind sometimes in a long season where you don't have your best. And right now, I think the Bruins are in a little portion of their schedule where right now we're not seeing their absolute best.
Yeah, definitely. I think it has a lot to do with how hard they've played. I mentioned it, a few days ago where you take the last 82 games from last season, the historic run, and then you take the hot start they had this year. That's a lot of winning. It's a lot of big hockey. But like I said, we haven't seen many days off from Boston. Just natural regression. fatigue and kind of just the the emotional letdowns at times. We hadn't really seen that from Boston, where we could have expected that. This is a team that could have gone 500 in October, and nobody would have batted an eye because of how their season went last year and how things ended. And it's just hard to get yourself back up after setting a record like that. But they got right back on the train and stayed hot. And now we're just seeing this aggression. And it's hitting at a larger time, and it's looking a bit more massive because we're out of the All-Star break, where this is a time of year where we're talking about the teams like historically like Pittsburgh, for example, where they sleepwalk the first half and then they turn it on the second. So it's kind of maybe a little disorienting for us to see a good team playing down now when you should have come back and had the rest and this and that. And that's what we're seeing from we're also seeing it from Winnipeg. We're also seeing that from LA. Although I think there's other issues with LA, but those are teams that played really well early, and now the regression of just we're not as good this night, or we're not able to give that full energy, during this stretch or on these trips, and that's coming to fruition. So, lucky to get the draw with Tampa and Boston, because obviously division rivals, they both need those points to hang on. But you can't just run and jump on Boston right now. If anything, this might be the only time we have, unless they can't get things rolling and moving ahead. But this is a good time now to possibly be looking to fade against the Bruins.
Yeah, and right now it's just not been, one of the better, better stretches of hockey, I think, right now from this Boston. They haven't been on top of their game, and we've been seeing that clear as day. There's no question. So keep an eye on them moving forward. Just buyer beware trying to back them. Great result for me was Columbus, Ottawa. I mean, everything that we talked about in that game was right as rain. We had the first period, both teams to score as easy as it gets there. Jackets and Sens, it was 1-1 in the first 10 minutes. Ottawa team total, full game over. I did jump on that live at 6.5. Once I saw that, 7 was too high pregame, but you figured a Tarasov and a returning Forsberg in net, who hasn't played in forever for Ottawa, would be a recipe for goals. And that was a really good result for me. 6-3 Ottawa. Ottawa's a team that, I'm not looking to step in front of them right now, Alex. They're going through a nice run. They're getting their shit together. I said going back a month or 2 months ago on this show, I said, you let this team get a slew of home games in a row, and finally they're at home. They did a lot of travel when they first fired Smith and they brought Jacques Martin in, and it's just difficult to get your ducks in a row when you're still on a road trip, to get the systems implemented and get, the way Jacques wants them to play a little bit better defensively. There's still ways to go to get where they want to be defensively, but they're definitely improving at that end of the ice, and their offense is great right now. Everybody's contributing. Kachuk with a huge night. Our guy Pinto, the Rambler Gambler, as I call him, he's been really good lately for the Sens. Batherson, go on down the list. Ridley Gregg, the man that was at the forefront of the controversy with Toronto on Saturday night. He scores last night. So lots to like right now with Ottawa. And there was absolutely zero to like about the Los Angeles Kings last night. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's about the ugliest bet I'll ever place, that I had a penny on that team last night. That was just so fucking horrific from start to finish last night. And that, the Shaq on the NBA on TNT, Shaquille O'Neal, who actually got his jersey retired which is ridiculous to me that he got his jersey retired by Orlando, quite honestly, 4 years there, and it's not like they had a ton of success there when he was there. But I just feel that's a little bit over the top that they retired his jersey there. I mean, it's he did most of his winning with Miami and his championships with Miami and the Lakers. But nevertheless, the one thing Shaq says is the general leads, the troops will follow. Well, guess what? One of your generals on this LA team is Drew Doughty. He made one of the worst giveaways I've ever seen. What's the hockey 101? You don't fucking cross ice pass in your own zone across your own net, and it gets picked off. Greenway fires it home. Back to Big Civ Dave. He was atrocious last night. I can't believe that's the same David Riddick that shut out the Edmonton Oilers, who put up, 8 goals last night on the Detroit Red Wings. David Riddick shuts him out Saturday night. David Riddick was back to the Civ last night. Big Civ Dave, back in full force. One of those goals can't go in. It goes right through the 5-hole. It's lying there, and it's pounded into the net by Buffalo. And once they got down 3-4-0, that was it. I mean, they basically mailed it in the rest of the night. There was no effort. There was no attempt to at least try to, get some positive vibes going for the next game, even though you knew you weren't going to come back in that game. I mean, and all the goodwill and all the hope that, a lot of people had after that great first game under Jim Hiller, where you beat up a great Edmonton team at home 4-0. and you have that kind of effort and no follow-up to that great performance against Edmonton, and you make mistakes galore defensively. I've never seen Andrei Kopitar have a worse. That's the worst night of his career. He was on the ice, I think, for 6 of the goals last night that were scored by the Buffalo Sabres, and that's a shame. This guy, obviously, offensively is capable, but he's been known just as much to be an amazing defensive player throughout his entire career. And to see that last night for him is just eye-popping to see Kopitar have that bad of a night defensively. I mean, hideous he was in that game. The whole team was. The goalie was just as bad, David Riddick. And the result was a Buffalo team that doesn't win many games by that kind of score, 7-0. It was like Bills versus Rams last night, not Sabres versus Kings. Touchdown Buffalo last night, and just an absolute, like, it's just, I thought we'd get on this Kings team and ride them and roll with them a little bit and start to maybe cash some tickets, see them go on a win streak. Now I know for damn sure I'll probably won't bet the next LA game from a side perspective. I won't be on LA again. That's for damn sure. But I'd probably be a little reluctant to jump on the other side. So I'm just going to sit back, watch this team for a bit, see how this unfolds. But that is such an absolute hitting of the shits last night from the LA Kings after what they were able to do against Edmonton. We were on this damn betcast Saturday night as well. Super Saturday betcast. We were all just, what a game by this Kings team. They look like they found their team game again. And then just last night, the very next game, it's like this team's never played an NHL game before. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, they're just in poor form right now, and it's funny. We talk about the other coaching changes that happen around the league. Obviously, with Edmonton, Minnesota, St. Louis, with the great bump that Bannister's given them, and that's continued success that we've seen from them, as opposed to maybe say like a Minnesota team. We're kind of seeing a next man down mentality, if you will, from the Kings, in the sense of, well, it's just Hiller. He's just another assistant. He's been a long-time assistant, granted, but it wasn't somebody brand new to change up things. It wasn't Patrick Waugh showing up and changing the philosophy on Long Island. So I didn't get too carried away with what we saw. Yes, they looked good against Edmonton, and that's, division rival, a team you need to be fired up for. But that still doesn't change the other issues they have. They still have these flaws and these issues. And that was the reason for me making that bet, mid-season, of this team won't make the playoffs, because it's deeper than coaching. It's deeper than just they're missing their goaltender and don't have their rotation anymore. There's flaws all over the place. And it just seems like the camaraderie they had early has fallen apart. And once again, another team that played hot early, and maybe they kind of, pardon the phrase, blew their nut a little bit early. And now here they are, just kind of wondering, what kind of team are we? And at the same time, you've got Seattle trying to fight hard. You got St. Louis now back in the wild card mix. Calgary still in the fight. So you got all these teams now that are nipping at you, and you aren't, winning at the clip you were winning in October and November. And now these teams are catching up to you, and you started to slide down the wrong way. So, it's problematic for LA. And I got to just say something to you mentioned about Shaq with the jersey retirement. Orlando wouldn't have had a basketball team into the 2000s without Shaq being there for those 4 years. He changed everything. He made that an actual basketball city, and his impact there lasts really, really longer than just the 4 years he played with the Magic. So that's the reason.
I get it. All right. Yeah, I didn't like. I'm not saying it was a brutal decision for them to retire his jersey. I'm just a little surprised, because usually you want to see it when his guy's been there for 8, 10, 12 years, multiple championships. That's what I think of when I think of jersey retirement.
The buildup of his superstardom came from Orlando. The shoes, him dunking and bringing the backboards down, him and Penny. Yeah.
Like, for instance, when Sir Patrick Kane, who clearly is going to get his jersey retired by the Chicago Blackhawks, gets that's the penultimate jersey retirement deserving.
Indeed.
Right there. Yes. Most of his career in Chicago, well over a decade, multiple championships. That checks all Ian Cameron's boxes for getting his jersey retired right there. I just thought with Shaq only 4 years, but you're right. The impact he made on Orlando for basketball.
Look at Marion Hossa. Marion Hossa, if you think about his career, at least for me, and I'm a Hawks fan, but I still think more about him with the Ottawa Senators than anybody else. But his number 81's hanging up at the United Center because of what he did for the Hawks in the time that he was there. So.
Yeah, no question. What else did we see last night? Anaheim, 5-0 Montreal. And that's why I stayed off that game. I said, I don't want to go against Montreal when they got embarrassed by St. Louis. And I didn't really love laying a price with Montreal either, but I know I talked myself out of Anaheim because I was worried about Montreal showing up after getting blown out on Super Bowl Sunday at home by St. Louis. And they did. They were great. Shutout for Caden Primo. And how about an old school flair to that game? Multiple fights, dust-ups, a lot of scrums, multiple fights. You had Adam Henrique fighting Caden Gooley. I did not have that on my bingo card for Ducks Canadians last night. But sure enough, got a little heated late in the game, and good to see that. And Juraj Slavkovsky cashes another goal prop for us, too. I mean, keep an eye on that with him. I mean, he continues to really starting to put it together now, playing with Suzuki and Caulfield. It's been a very good top line lately for Montreal as they slammed the door shut on the Anaheim Ducks last night, 5-0 in that game. The Kraken, 2-1 win in a shootout over the New York Islanders last night. I was very surprised by this. I mean, Islanders were rested, coming off a bad game against Calgary, and this is where Seattle's speed came into play. Seattle's a fast team. We know that. They've been kind of struggling since the break. And yes, they were on a back-to-back, but they still out-hustled and just outskated the Islanders all night, won puck battles, had the puck more because they were the faster team. And the Islanders had trouble keeping up. The Islanders had a bunch of power play chances, too, and couldn't convert on any of them. And I thought they were scared to shoot the fucking puck on a few of them, which is absolutely absurd considering you're facing a goalie for the first time who hasn't played in forever. And now the Islanders have hit another little speed bump, 2 losses in a row under Patrick Waugh. But kudos to the Kraken. That was a really tough spot last night. Find a way to win in a shootout, 2-1 last night over the New York Islanders. 4-2 Dallas beating Carolina. This was a great hockey game. I watched pretty much all of this game from start to finish. You could just tell watching this game, these are 2 really good teams. These are 2 teams that are going to be making noise April, May, and perhaps into June. That's how good it was. It was competitive. It was back and forth. It was pretty evenly played. There was some good goaltending moments on both sides from both Pyotr Kochetkov and from Jake Ottinger, although Ottinger got the better of him. And Ottinger's really had a couple of great games now since the break. The Buffalo game was outstanding. And last night, the save he made on Michael Bunting in the third period, absolute robbery to deny Michael Bunting of a goal from it right in tight by Jake Ottinger in that game. Great challenge late in the game by Peter DeBoer when it looked like Carolina got it to within a goal. Clearly, he pushed the pads of Ottinger with his stick. They couldn't let that goal stand. So a 4-2 Dallas victory in that game. And shout out to John Massey and some of the others that had a sneaking suspicion that game would stay under the total last night, 6.5, knowing we had 2 pretty good goalies for both teams, and maybe 2 teams kind of looking at that as kind of a playoff tester, if you will, to see where they're at. But Dallas gets the job done. And it's nice to see them have a comfortable margin for a change because for some reason, home games, good or bad opponent, they've been letting teams hang around. But nice to see Dallas play that was one of their better efforts, I think, start to finish that Dallas has had in quite some time. But that was a great game, Alex, Carolina-Dallas last night.
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of that game as well. And like I said, Jake Ottinger has stepped up now, and he's looking good in some of these starts. And I'm going to take a little dive this weekend and kind of maybe look at some of the Vezina Trophy odds. But he's one of those guys. There's a couple other guys that I like circle. I might take a small sprinkle on now because if he can get into a good rhythm the second half, help Dallas win the Central Division, he could easily be one of those top 3 finalists potentially if he can continue this run. So that'll be huge for Dallas if so, and we might be able to get a little bit of good futures value now locking down on that. But that was a fantastic game. Like I said, Kochetkov held his own as well. Made some big saves, and he's going to be the key piece. If Carolina is really serious about being a playoff team this year and making a run past the first round, you have to go Kochetkov. Don't worry about any of this. If Edmund Anderson comes back, if Bronta's healthy for 2 weeks, Kochetkov's your guy. Don't screw around and roll with it. And if they make any more balances or changes or try to make some trades and screw this thing up, there's a good chance we could see Carolina just completely bottom out and somehow possibly find their way out of the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me one bit. If they rock the apple cart any more than they already have with their goaltending, that could be problematic. So I think they need to roll Kochetkov and move that forward, and they'll be in a good position.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I've seen some positives in Dallas's game. There's no question about that moving forward, which I know makes Matt Robinson very happy. By the way, and that we'll never let Cheshire Cat unfortunately forget that, right? When he said that on one of the betcasts, the Stars will miss the playoffs in a moment where I think he had some enhancers in his system that night, quite honestly. Sure. But that was pretty funny. That would go down. That would be the equivalent of one of those freezing cold takes tweets. Right there. that was actually uttered by, we love Cheshire Cat, but at the same time, saying the Stars missing the playoffs that night was a little rough. It was a little rough here in that. Yeah, no doubt. What else did we see last night? The remainder of the games. New Jersey, man, well done. Back to back for them. They go on the road, down in the third period, 2-1. Find a way to beat Nashville 4-2. Good stuff from them, and 2 really nice defensive efforts. In fact, they've played pretty solid defensively since the break, in a lot of games. So no question about that. We'll give New Jersey a lot of credit. It was an impressive. Now, I know Nashville's up and down like crazy, but, I mean, New Jersey winning that game last night 4-2, very impressive. The Vancouver Canucks, look, that was a spot for them to easily lay an egg because you're playing a weak Chicago team. You're dead tired at the end of a road trip. Still got the job done 4-2 last night against the Blackhawks in that game. Like we said, we had the Dick Hog parlay for the goal score parlay courtesy of Allen, and we come one short. We had Höglander, the Hog part of it. Dick didn't live up to his end of the bargain there with that Dick Hog goal score parlay in the Blackhawks and the Canucks game. But solid win for Vancouver. Workmanlike, got it done. Chicago, again, offensively challenged. What else is new? Another game where they're held to 2 goals or less. But shout out to my former Hamilton Bulldog player. Played here for a few years. Mackenzie Entwistle fighting Dakota Joshua last night. That's not his game at all. He was willing to take on that guy. Credit to him.
Yeah, no, that was probably the actual highlight for the Hawks was that fight. Honestly, the 2 goals were solid. Ryan Donato with a great assist, which that really made me happy. He's a guy who's pretty much disappointed me for most of the year. I thought he was going to be a key offensive piece, and I thought his signing was great at the beginning of the year, but he's been non-existent. And clearly, he was in Luke Richardson's doghouse because we've seen him most of the time spending time on the 3rd and 4th lines, even with all the injuries. He still hasn't worked his way back up to a consistent number 1 or number 2 line spot. So that says most of you need to know there. But like I say, that could have been a sleepwalk game for Vancouver. They took it seriously and earned themselves 2 much needed points. Obviously now top team in the West, so they're rocking and rolling. But Hawks still struggling. Everybody's just waiting for Connor Bedard to get back. And how amazing is this? Jason Dickinson, as you mentioned, didn't get the goal, but he did get an assist. So he now leads the team in points. It's the first time that someone other than Bedard has led the team in points all year long, and Bedard's been gone for literally over a month. So that just tells you all you need to know about the Hawks' lack of offensive.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no question about that. Struggling to score goals, and it continued last night. That's a great point, John, about New Jersey. They really owned that game for a large chunk of it. First period could have been 3 or 4 for New Jersey, if not for UC Saros. So they definitely deserved to win that game. Wow. The Edmonton Oilers, and look, I thought we were going to see a competitive effort from Detroit. Well, we did for 2 periods. That game was 3-3 going into the 3rd period, and it looked like, wow, here I am with Detroit and the draw in that game. And I had already cashed all the totals, and we nailed that one on the show yesterday, saying, okay, Edmonton's been playing all these unders, holding teams to 2 goals or less in a majority of their games. It's not going to happen for the rest of the season in every single game. They're going to start to regress a little bit defensively. I looked at some of their defensive metrics. 90% of them are unsustainable, what they've done the last month or 2. Yeah, they've improved a lot defensively. Alex and I have talked about that with Edmonton. But they're not going to keep every single team they play for the rest of the season to 2 goals or less. It's just not going to happen. So I said, this is a spot here. Detroit's kind of playing up and down hockey, willing to play with pace, that we were going to get goals early and often, and we did. But what I did not expect was when it was 3-3 going into the 3rd, that it would be just a volcanic eruption like that from the Edmonton Oilers. My goodness, they absolutely exploded in the 3rd period. 8-3 beatdown, 8-4, I should say, for the Edmonton Oilers last night over the Detroit Red Wings. They're scary right now, and I'm not just saying that because now, what are they, 18-2 in their last 20 games? I'm not just saying it because of that. How many years have been going back to Dana Lanes of the world and the Andrew McGinnises of the world being on this show with us? How many times have we said about the Oilers they rely so much on McDavid and so much on Draisaitl and they don't always get those step-up contributions from everyone else? And then you see a game like last night, and there's 2 defensemen, Ceci and Bouchard, scoring. There's Nugent Hopkins scoring 2 goals. There's Hyman and Kane scoring for them. There's Dylan Holloway chipping in some offense. Look at what McLeod and Fogle have done for this team for the majority of this 20-game stretch as well. Now they're getting the other forward stepping in and stepping up, I should say. And they are a very lethal team right now. There is no question. They got all four lines contributing. I don't think it helped Detroit either. As John says, you're right. Husso getting injured. Lyon had to come in.
Yeah.
The Lion's been playing pretty decently. Not last night. There's no question. But that was a tough spot for him. And how about the night for Connor McDavid? I try not to go overboard. Everybody else, pumps 97's tires and goes on and on about how amazing he is. I don't feel the need to do that here on this show. But last night you have to. 6 assists, 6 points in the game. What can you say? 6-point night, all of them assists for Connor McDavid. Absolutely remarkable stuff. And the Oilers turned it into a blowout in the third period.
Yeah, and it drives home the point where you're saying about, dispersing and getting your secondary scoring going. So when you have McDavid getting 6 assists in a night, Draisaitl helping out those other guys, and then they're going to score goals as well. Yeah, that's as dynamic of an offense as you get in the league. Now, of course, things will start to regress naturally as we get closer into the postseason because that just happens with offense, right? Every offensive team we love and talk about, go back to Florida a couple of years ago, even this Edmonton team last year, when it's time to buckle down and play 3-2 hockey, can you get back to playing 3-2 hockey? And we're waiting for that club. At least I know I've been waiting for a team to just go through the playoffs and just bulldoze everybody with offense. This could be that team. Maybe we find that difference in balance where they go first round. You know what? Let's just blitz everybody and win and try and score 7-8 goals and use that. And I think, like I said, sometimes when you find a balance and you find some steady ground in your momentum, you just keep rolling with that. Don't get too defensive heavy because everybody else is getting defensive heavy. If you scoring 9 goals is what's working right now, keep scoring 9 fucking goals and do as much as you can to get that offense on the higher side of scoring. I think that was the issue for a team like Florida when they had that collapse in the playoffs. They wanted to try to play the playoff hockey everybody knows about. Well, no, stick with what works. Stay with the chick that you brought to the dance. That's basically what you have to do with that approach. And I think that's the reason why Edmonton's playing so well. Yes, they're getting the defense, they're getting the goaltending now, but they're not so worried about that. They're just playing their game. We're not badgering them about making saves and holding teams to 3 goals or less. They're just naturally doing it. And now we're looking at the offense. So I think there's a lot of pressure that's off of that team. And I think that's what makes them more dangerous. That's the difference between them and Toronto right now. Toronto can't get any kind of pressure off of them. Okay, Toronto could win the next 5 games 10-0, and we're still going to find something to bitch about with the Maple Leafs. But with Edmonton right now, the pressure and all the shit that we had said about October, November, that's all gone now. And so now they can just be themselves and play free hockey, and that's the most dangerous thing above all.
Absolutely, and they're dangerous, and their structure is better. I think, and now you're seeing a full season of Matthias Ekholm kind of benefiting them as well. That veteran stay-at-home defensive-minded presence has helped, and of course Skinner has got his game back. There's no question about that. He's been a lot better the last few months as well. All right, we've got 3 games as we turn our attention to Wednesday night, and this one is TNT. And TNT, by the way, is not only doing this game on the main TNT, but they're doing a Spit and Chicklets like alternative broadcast tonight as well on True TV for this Florida and Pittsburgh game tonight with Biz Whitney and the crew. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But we've got Florida and Pittsburgh. Panthers -130, road favorites, 6 the total in this game. Didn't these teams just play in Pittsburgh like recently? I think I remember recently I was on Florida in Pittsburgh, and I think it was an overtime win, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. I'm just seeing it now. Yeah, or shootout win. 3-2 for the Florida Panthers in Pittsburgh just a couple of weeks ago. They're 2-0 in the series history, in the season series, I should say, over Pittsburgh. Florida's playing well. They won the last 2 at home. They bounced back from that game against Philadelphia, where they lost 2-1 coming out of the break, although the Flyers have been a freight train since the break. So that loss doesn't even look as bad right now with the way the Flyers have played. They bounce back, and they end up beating both Washington and Colorado very impressively at home. We'll see how they fare here in this one. I'm not stepping in front of this Florida team. Florida's got the second best road record in the NHL right now. Second best road record in the NHL, 17-7-1 on the road this year for the Florida Panthers. And a lot of my betting victories with them have been on the road as opposed to at home. Pittsburgh, look, they need the points more than Florida does. There's no question, but doesn't mean you're going to get them. And after that 3-0 win against Winnipeg coming out of the break. They dropped 2 in a row on the road against the Wild and the Jets. They've had a hard time matching up. And if you look at the defensive metrics of this team, they're just far worse compared to Florida. Florida is like number 1 or number 2 in goals against, expected goals against. I mean, it's been unbelievable how good the defensive numbers look right now for the Florida Panthers. Look, I think they are validating right now that last year and the run they made in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it wasn't a flash in the pan. They needed to show that they could have a better regular season because really they didn't have a good regular season last year. They just got hot late in the season in the last month trying to make the playoffs desperately, which they barely did. And then it was the playoffs where they got on the run and looked like the team where this season they've looked a lot more like that playoff team as opposed to the middling, meandering regular season team that we saw last year. So I'm going to go same bet I placed last time. Now, look, it was a close game. I think this will be a close game too. I don't think it's going to be a runaway by any stretch of the imagination for Florida, but they're the much better team eye test wise. They're the much better team statistically, especially on the defensive side right now. So at a price this cheap, -125, -130, you win it with the Florida Panthers here, -130 in this one. I might sprinkle on the team total as well, but the team total did fall short the last time they were in Pittsburgh. So I do think I'm still going to put the majority of that position on the money line here with Florida tonight. Bobrovsky and Jari, by the way, your starting goaltending matchup. Alex, what do you think here? Panthers, Penguins.
So yeah, I'm going with a chalk and draw split here. I think, like I said, Florida's been solid on the road, and it's a team that I don't want to go against. But Pittsburgh needing the points, and I could see it with this. Maybe they try to muck things up, make things a little bit more physical, which plays right in Florida style. And it could be a bit of a slower pace and a slower start for them. Like I said, you want to try and tamper that Panther offense a little bit. So draw wouldn't be shocking for me, but I have a little bit more on the Panthers. Like I said, I grabbed a -$1.25.
All right, so it's a Florida and draw split for Alex. I like the Evan Rodriguez look. There's no doubt. I agree with that fully. I think he's got a good chance to find the back of the net here. He's against one of his old teams, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I definitely agree with that. And he's still on the power play as well right now for this Panthers team on the second unit. If I'm not mistaken, I'll actually think he did score yes, he did. That was the last goal he scored at Pittsburgh. Last time they played the Penguins in Pittsburgh. So we'll see how it goes here. I agree. This is not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had a great game at last time they were at home against Winnipeg, no question. This is not a shoe-in by any stretch of the imagination here with Florida tonight, because this is a much more important 2 points for Pittsburgh as they desperately try to hang on in the playoff race. So, like I said, though, I mean, Florida's been good to me. Anytime I see Florida in this kind of a price range on the road where they're a second best 17-7-1 on the road this year, I'm going to bet them. I don't care who they're playing or the situation. So Florida, as long as they're not on a back-to-back, which they're not here. So yeah, Florida here in this one. And like I say, yeah, Lars Eller is worth a look too. I agree. Lars Eller as the depth forward look for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And like I said, Evan Rodriguez, probably my favorite look here for the Panthers as far as goal props in this one. All right, San Jose Sharks and Winnipeg Jets. Yes, that is the San Jose Sharks, finally the last team in the NHL to be playing since the All-Star break. But they are finally back in action here tonight, taking on the Winnipeg Jets. We've got Winnipeg. How about a -450 home favorite for the Winnipeg Jets here in this game? Massive chalk they are, and the total sitting at 5.5. Pretty much across the board here in this one. I mean, this is just one of those games where it's for San Jose. Are you really going to get them sharp and playing their best early? We've seen teams kind of struggle in this situation post All-Star break, where a team that's played at least a few games or at least 1, 2, 3 games since the break faces a team that hasn't played since the break, and the team that hasn't played has often been at a disadvantage going into this one. So I'm going to go about it a different way with the approach here. It's only even money. It's like +100, -105. It's not a great price, but I'm going to lay a little first period puck line here on the Winnipeg Jets. You just got to believe they can grab a lead in the first 20 minutes. San Jose hasn't played in forever. And obviously we know the Winnipeg Jets are the much better of these two teams. And look, I don't think they're going to look at this as a letdown spot, because they beat Pittsburgh and they snapped two horrible games. We won one measly game. We're satisfied? Absolutely not. You got to keep it going now. You got to get that form back that you had most of the first half of the season. You don't just say, oh, we had 2 shit games coming out of the break against the Penguins and the Flyers on the road. Yeah, we beat Pittsburgh at home, and now it's time to slough off again. No, you got to build that momentum again, build that confidence back up for this Winnipeg Jets team. And you got the perfect opponent in the perfect spot to do that. San Jose, one of the worst teams in the NHL, and in a situation where they have not played since January 31st. That is a freaking long time to not play hockey. So I'm going to hope that the Winnipeg Jets pounce on them early. And I'm going to go a step further as well with this. Not only Winnipeg first period puck line here in this game with the Sharks and the Jets, but I'm also going to go with at a over 1.5 at plus 200 over team total for the Jets in the first period in this game. So give me a 2 spot in the first period here from the Winnipeg Jets, which, by the way, they were able to accomplish on Saturday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were up 2-0 after the first period. I can see the exact same score here tonight, 2-0 Winnipeg. Maybe a Winnipeg 2-0 correct score prop in the first period too. Hell, why not? It was 2-0 against Pittsburgh the other night. So there we go. Over plus 200 is a great price for that Winnipeg first period team total, over 1.5 plus 200. And I also like that even money Winnipeg puck line first period here as well. That's it. Nothing full game because look, we saw Winnipeg park the bus against Pittsburgh with the 2-0 lead the other night, and chances are if they have that kind of a margin here tonight, they might do the same, knowing that San Jose, not the biggest threat in the world, to dent a very good team. When Winnipeg's on their game, they're as good as it gets defensively, and with Hellebuck on his game, it's not like the Sharks are going to put the fear of God in Winnipeg that they're going to come back down 2 goals. Winnipeg can just play tight, shut it down, and get their win and move on. What do you think here in this one, Alex? San Jose, Winnipeg.
So this would be a complete pass for me normally, but I am going to take a small shot with the draw because it's at plus 490, and that's an insane number. And here's the thing. Yes, as bad as San Jose is, you've had 2 weeks off. You should come out fully rested, if nothing else. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be, like I said, tight. We expect maybe some loose and sloppy play in the first 5 minutes, but the rest should not be an issue. And in saying that, maybe if they have some kind of pushback, it would be early. If they can get the first goal and maybe kind of just push Winnipeg on their heels a bit, where we've seen at times where if they aren't dictating the pace and tempo, they can be kind of a bit off kilter. So I get what you're saying. You're going with the logic here that Winnipeg, being the fresher team, could just run in there and blow them out because they're also the vastly better team. I just think this game, in my pit of my stomach, it feels like some random shit could happen, and a 4-4 overtime wouldn't shock me one bit. So I'm grabbing a little bit of draw money, and that's pretty much about it. I'll just be kind of eyeing in watching this game more than anything else.
All right, like in a little piece of the draw, that is a huge monster price on the draw. That is for sure. Talking about plus 490 for Sharks Jets draw here tonight in this game. And it is worth noting, too, this has not been an easy opponent for Winnipeg at times. I mean, you look at this year, 2 meetings. San Jose won 2-1 at home. Or San Jose won it at home 2-1. And then the other meeting in San Jose, January 4th, it was only 2-1 Winnipeg. So they haven't had an easy time of it. But again, they catch a Sharks team that is really, and I mean really, on a huge layoff here. We're talking about nearly 2 weeks exactly 2 weeks since the San Jose Sharks last played a hockey game. There's no question that could be trouble tonight here, taking the ice in an NHL game for the first time. Kokkonen and Hellebuck, by the way, are going to be the goaltenders tonight in this matchup with the Sharks and the Jets. Not a whole lot that I love as far as the props go, but I do want to point something out. Niederreiter scored against Pittsburgh. I think he could go on a bit of a run, and I think Perfetti, if you look at Perfetti, he's cooled off a little bit, but he's had a bunch of chances here in these last few games. I think Cole Perfetti is someone that's, I think, due for the Winnipeg Jets to once again find the back of the net. So those would be a couple I'd be eyeing here on the Winnipeg side. All right, the third and final game for this Wednesday night slate, the Minnesota Wild, who had an extremely impressive victory in Vegas the other night. They will look to keep it going as they take on the Arizona Coyotes. We've got Minnesota, a slight road favorite here at Mullet, minus 115 road chalk in the desert. We have a total here sitting at 6 pretty much across the board in this one. I got to give Minnesota their credit. Going to Vegas is not easy, especially Golden Knights have been playing well, and they get a nice 5-3 win over Vegas on Monday night. And now that is 3 straight wins out of the All-Star break for the Wild. Albeit the Chicago one still, as we've talked about, wasn't the most impressive. But they beat Pittsburgh on Marc-Andre Fleury's 1,000th game night, 3-2 last week. And then that 5-3 win in Vegas. I did not see that coming, especially once Adin Hill was confirmed. Yes, they probably got Adin Hill on one of his off nights. It wasn't one of his better games. But really, they pounced on a few mistakes by this Vegas team. Took advantage of it. Brock Faber was phenomenal again. This kid continues to impress. You have to get right back on the well with the assist prop. You keep betting that until it stops cashing at this point. I mean, the assist is still plus 120, plus 130, and all this guy does is get at least one, it seems, in every recent game on the back end right now for this Wild team. Back to Marc-Andre Fleury tonight in goal. Of course, we saw Gustafsson get the start against Vegas, so this will be Fleury's first start since that Friday night when he got the win in the 1,000th game against his old team, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Connor Ingram will be in net here for the Arizona Coyotes after we all pounced on Philly in some form, most of us the team total, with Vejmelka the other night in net, noting his struggles. But I will say this, slowly but surely, Alex, Connor Ingram is starting to spring some leaks here lately. Not anything to be alarmed about, but, the last 4 starts, he gave up the 6 to Tampa, 3 to Carolina, 3 to Vegas, 5 goals to Nashville in that last game that he was in net, where the Predators came back from, I believe, a 4-2 deficit in the third period, and they beat Arizona 5-4 in overtime. So 0-4 now is Connor Ingram in his last 4 starts for the Arizona Coyotes. And I like the mojo Minnesota's kind of rolling with right now. So I'm a little reluctant to step in front of the Wild here. Now, Arizona has won 3 straight meetings here against the Wild. And they've won 2 in a row here at home. I believe since Mullet Arena has been in existence for their home games, Arizona's undefeated 2-0 against Minnesota. So this is a real tough game. I'd lean Minnesota. I like their form better right now at this point in time. I don't love it, though. Maybe the draw. This is as close as I got to a draw tonight on the card, Minnesota and Arizona. I think I could see one take place here. The last time these teams met in the desert, it was 5-4 overtime win for Arizona last March. Arizona went to OT a couple games ago against Nashville, so that's probably what I'll get involved with. Maybe I get to Minnesota, I lean that way, but certainly might put a few bucks on the draw here. This is the one that stands out to me of the 3 games as the one with the most likely OT shootout potential. What do you think, Alex? Wild Coyotes?
Yeah, I have a draw ticket on this game too, only because it fits the draw season criteria. You got 2 teams, same division, still playing as if they have a chance to make the postseason. I'm saying that more so in the Minnesota, and I really don't think they have much of a chance. But I think Arizona falls out of favor as well. So this could be a good back and forth kind of a battle game, and I think this is a good game for live wagering. I lean more toward Minnesota in this spot. Like I said, even though Arizona's won the last 3 meetings, Minnesota had dominated the Yotes for quite some time. And like I said, Arizona has kind of taken a step back. Even if you look at how the Coyotes were playing around that time when those 3 contests were, much better back then than they are right now. This looks like a Coyotes team, like I said, that they've expended all the energy they pretty much have, and they're still missing enough talent to be a true Western Conference playoff team, and that's starting to show, where the Wild are showing some grit and some favor right now and just have some good momentum rolling. So I think we can get a better price with the Wild. I think we can see some goals back and forth here. I'm not really jumping on a 6 right now. Like I said, everything total and even sidewise, I would be looking at end game. The only thing I have pregame is on the draw.
All right, liking the draw here in this one. I'd probably lean more first period over than full game in this game if I were to look in that direction as far as any of the overs in this game. I think the first period over might be the better option. Certainly there were a flurry of goals with Minnesota against Vegas on Monday night. That first period was never in doubt. Tons of goals early between the Golden Knights and the Wild the other night. And if you look at Arizona, the last time Ingram was in net, the Nashville game, it went over in the first period, and the Vegas-Arizona game for the Coyotes coming out of the All-Star break went over in the first period as well. So I might get in on a first period over here. We'll see. I'm talking myself into it as we speak. I'm definitely on Faber assist. That's a no-brainer right now with the way he's playing for the Minnesota Wild. Lots of Boldy starting to heat up again. Don't forget about Rossi. Saw him chip in the other night. Zook, Eriksson Ek. I mean, that's why Minnesota's, perked up here with 3 wins in a row. They're getting multiple contributors offensively. A 2-goal night for Eriksson Ek against Vegas. Like I said, Matt Boldy's starting to rip again. 5 points, 2 goals in the last 2 games for him. And like I said, Marco Rossi having a kind of a breakout year for him. Kind of went cold for a bit, but got a goal the other night against Vegas. So that's been the key. It's not all on Kaprizov's plate, right now for Minnesota. They're getting other people stepping up for them at this point in time. I think for Arizona, if I'm going to look at props here, but I'd look at Jason Zucker. I do. He's had a real knack for scoring against his former teams as well, Jason Zucker. So again, Minnesota, the first team he was with in the NHL. I know he was with Pittsburgh after that, but Zucker was with Minnesota first. So Zucker prop might be worth a look here tonight in this game. I think Dylan Guenther's due as well. We saw Michelli. We've seen him step up a little bit as far as offense goes of late. But Dylan Guenther, I think, is capable. He got a goal and an assist against Nashville over the weekend. He's now in the number 1 power play unit. So Dylan Guenther, is kind of a player that's got some value, in my opinion, right now. And that we were able to cash in a few times earlier this season with his props. All right, great stuff. That's the Wednesday card. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Glad you're tuning in. 160 live viewers. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. And a reminder, sign up. Patreon.com/Ice Guys. Just $10 per month. Again, daily sides, totals, player props posted there each and every day. Of course, bonus videos, bonus content, and exclusive live betcasts. You guys have probably figured out which day it is this week, but I'll still say it because we're not giving out the day until it arrives. But yes, this week there will be a Patreon exclusive live betcast coming up. It's coming soon. And let me just say that if you want to watch the betcast that we are having this week, it's only available for Patreon members to watch, Patreon members to be a part of on the stream. So make sure you sign up to be a part of our betcast this week. So we are looking forward to that. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. Again, and the subscription fees go a long way to preserving this show and keeping it rolling for many years to come. So make sure you sign up and subscribe. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. And of course, the Ice Guys store. Make sure you get your gear and your merch. It's all there. iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Yeah, today being Valentine's Day, they have a 1-day special at the Ice Guys store. 22% off everything in the store. That's a weird number, but twos, couples, I guess that's what they came up with. So 22% off. It helps you out. Go to iceguys.myspreadshop.com. We got everything in stock except for the Flex Fit caps. I think those are coming back in later this week. But all the hoodies and t-shirts should be fully in stock right now. So definitely check that out. 22% off today only for Valentine's Day. iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Absolutely. Get in on the great gear that you can find at the store. No question about that. As well as the great products that you can get from our daily sponsor here on the Ice Guys Show, Boston Hemp Inc. Time to, once again, hear from our good friends at Boston Hemp Inc. Boston Hemp Inc. Make sure you check them out. Of course, our great daily sponsors. Be sure to check out the quality products at Boston Hemp Inc. today. Use promo code ICEGUYS to save 20% off all orders. Check it out at bostonhempinc.com. All right, it is time for our bargain bin special of the night. I can't even remember who I had last night, but it didn't come through. It was Corey Perry. Corey Perry was not Scory Perry last night for the Edmonton Oilers. Should have went back to the well with Höglander again, like I did on Super Bowl Sunday. But nevertheless, bargain bin special, 3 games, Alex. Did you come up with anything?
Yeah, I do. In that Arizona and Minnesota game, you mentioned about Marco Rossi looking, solid, getting the goal and getting his kind of scoring touch together. Those guys in the second, third line going to really have to step up if Minnesota wants to try to make a push here in the second half. You can get him at Bet Online at plus 325 anytime goal. So that's why I'm going with Rossi there.
I like it. I think that's going to be on my prop card as well. Marco Rossi, one of the candidates for me as well for a bargain bin special of the night. My bargain bin special of the night for this slate. Let me just see what the price is. Does it fit that criteria? Of course it does. Evan Rodriguez, Florida Panthers, against his old team, the Pittsburgh Penguins. He scored the last time he faced Pittsburgh, plus 390 at Betano is a great price. Let's strike with Evan Rodriguez with the Florida Panthers for my bargain bin special of the night for this Wednesday card. All right, it is time for best bets here to wrap it up for this Wednesday edition of the Ice Guys show. Alex, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
With this. All right, here we go. Best bet tonight. We're going to go with draw season. Florida and Pittsburgh. Like I said, these are two teams that need points, but they're in different situations. Pittsburgh's kind of a bit of a mess where Florida is just absolutely rocking and rolling. But I can see where this game's a little bit tight. TNT cameras there. Like I said, they're going to have the True TV Spit and Chicklets feed. I'll probably tune into that for all of maybe 10 or 11 seconds. I guess they couldn't get the Impractical Jokers guys to do that. So we'll go with the draw with the Pens and the Cats. Wow. Draw season plus 335 is what I saw. That's my best bet for tonight.
You go. Florida, Pittsburgh draw for Alex B. Smith with his best bet. And look, I love Spit and Chicklets show, but when I want to watch a hockey game, like I'll watch their podcast to watch them talk and prattle on. And I'm sure it'll be entertaining, but that's what the podcast is for. When I'm watching a hockey game, I want the regular standard broadcast for the most part with Kenny Edzo and Bush. But I'm sure they'll do a great job. I'm sure it'll be fun. It'll be funny. But it's just for me when I'm watching a sporting event, like I don't really go to the Manning cast anymore on football. I watched it a couple of times, but I'm just one of those old farts now approaching 40 where I want my standard play-by-play man and booth analyst in there and that for my entertainment for the game. So
I agree.
That's just the way it is. All right. Best bet for me here on this Wednesday card. It can only be better than last night with the LA Kings. So hopefully this is. And I'm going to go back to the well with something that did cash for me on Saturday. And it was my best bet on Saturday. It's the exact same bet. It's the Winnipeg Jets first period puck line, -0.5, -105. San Jose has not played in 2 full weeks. Winnipeg is trying to build some momentum after snapping their 2-game losing streak, coming out of the break, beating the Penguins on Saturday. And I think they get a ripe opportunity here to jump on San Jose early as they get their legs under them in the first 20 minutes. And I think Winnipeg can get the lead into the first intermission. Winnipeg first period puck line, -0.5, -105 for my best bet here for this Wednesday card. That'll wrap up this edition of the show. Thanks to everyone for joining us. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night, and we will see you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the Ice Guys.